Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the 6th episode of Muslim Billionaires. This episode is technically about popularity, but before we get into it, you guys know the deal. Subscribe, follow, tune in. And for anybody that's looking for the podcast, you can find it on Spotify as you guys are on it, on YouTube as well. And so without further ado, today I'm going to introduce the topic by saying it's really, really interesting, right? Have you wondered, popularity has just been expanding throughout all platforms, right? You can be popular at a smaller niche. You can be popular with a smaller audience now. So I started questioning and asking myself questions. What is the difference between where we are right now, especially in the digital age, and where we were before, when it was just a handful of quote-unquote superstars at what they were doing? Whether you think from the music industry, whether it's in the film industry, it was always just a handful. So I was just wondering, and what it is that took away that, right? And what the realization I came down to with is there are no gatekeepers. Nobody is in between anymore right now, right? Between you and the audience you gotta garner. Back then, I would say maybe 20 years ago, you would have to, more than 20 plus years ago, I would say, you would have to go through certain places to get to tap into certain audiences and crowds and people are having a core fan base to, show talent. And that's another thing, another aspect to it. You would have to have talent. And that's why the quote-unquote gatekeepers will say executives that would, put marketing dollars and invest in you would see the talent and try to distribute the talent to that and have full ownership to whatever you're garnering with your talent and the product or service that you're providing. That was the difference, right? Now, talent is not, I see arguments saying talent is non-existent. Talent needs to still be there. The ingredients of building a platform has to have some sort of talent. What I mean by that is, with talent, you need to be good at what you're at or what you're doing, but also simultaneously you need to practice and get better to what you're doing, right? In order to find the audience, and that audience could find you, right? But simultaneously, a lot of us think we just need to be popular and that's it. Find something to find popularity and that's it. So I made an equation, right? The equation that, there's a popular equation where preparation plus opportunity equals failure, right? Preparation plus opportunity equals failure, right? But then there's a reverse side of that is, how about if you're unprepared plus opportunity? Unpreparation plus opportunity equals failure. That's the equation that I thought of. So when you see a lot of content creatives, right, that are in the social media realm, virality is one of the essential parts of what most of us strive for. But then what happens when you're completely unprepared for the opportunity that comes with it, right? Meaning, if you want to ask yourself a question, as a creator, do you ask yourself, would you rather have a catalog of content, let's just say hundreds of videos of subpar views, or would you want to have one viral moment? One viral moment that went 100,000 views. For those that are thinking right now, people would choose maybe the one video that give me 100,000. But here's the thing. a lot of people will just be a fan of the video rather than being a supporter of your platform because they don't see a catalog, right? Think of it as a series of a TV show or something like that, right? Where there's plethora of episodes that are being presented, right? And then there's one viral episode that came out, and then a fan base just start storming in to the show. Now the show has supporters. They converted the fans over supporters. This is why you see a lot of people put out clips of what their content is because of the short attention span that we're going through, a 13-second to 30-second, 60 seconds of a clip of what they're doing. Find that viral moment, and then you have a storm of people tuning into what you said, right? Now, do you want to be in a platform that just has that one viral moment, and then they just a fan of that clip, or do you want to have a catalog full of clips or content, and people can assume or can be a supporter of your platform? See, that's the biggest difference, right? And going back to what popularity actually looks like now, it's not one specific group of people anymore. Talent has spread it all over the place, right? I'll tell you so there's pros and cons to this, and I'll specifically talk about the cons that come with it. I always say social media is a double-edged sword, right? Social media has given the voice and platform to everybody in this world. But then the downside of it is it's also given the voice and platform to everyone else. So when you witness that, it's like how many people are, again, deserving of what they're doing, how many people want to earn what they're trying to accomplish, and this is when consistency comes in. But here's the thing. So many people are out here that are putting out talent, and then you're thinking, how are they popular? And don't you want to strive for a popularity of worldwide popularity? I'm not saying it's non-existent. It's just not as prevalent as it used to be. Why? Because everybody, like it or not, right, should be striving to be a superstar in their role. Superstar in the niche that they're in, right? And having certain elements by just not showing talent, because there's so many talented people that just go through the waves of the ocean and they get washed off and become super forgotten, right? And then there's the other side of people that don't show the talent, but they have the likability, they know how to garner attention, and they also are very entertaining amongst all of that. And then on top of that, they're super talented. I think the three ingredients is the things I just mentioned that come with maintaining your platform is having to learn how to garner attention, building that skill set, having to know to be likability, meaning authenticity, just being real of who you are, not faking to be somebody else. And then thirdly, having to be entertaining. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian to be entertaining. Just entertainment in terms of people love tuning into what you're saying, right? So in order to maximize all three things, you're going to have to stay consistent. You have to find your voice, and you have to understand to be a superstar in your role. What I mean by that is, if you're a cook and your niche is just cooking, right? Be a superstar within that cooking niche, right? Everything else comes with it. If you're making a good living off of that, why are you striving to become something else more than just being that cook? I see people trying to be a cook, then be something else, and then be something else. I'm like, why don't you just capitalize on being a superstar in your niche? And then, not only are you serving an underserved niche or industry, right? But you're also showing authenticity from just being yourself, and there's only one you. So that's another subset of just not being cook, not only being a cook, not only being entertained, not only learning how to garner attention, but also simultaneously learning how to knowing how to be a superstar in your role. which is very essential to any person that's within the growth of being a content creator, right? But going back to my original question, why is it that a lot of the superstars that we see today are gravitating towards the niche and subsets of what entertainment looks like? This is why you see a lot of the legacy acts from back then still go into some of the small or smaller YouTube channels just to gravitate towards that, right? Even at the highest stake we've seen it in the U.S. presidential campaign, we've seen it, right? Donald Trump exposed himself into going into podcast to podcast because he understood the niche of the smaller subsets of what entertainment looks like and what the people are actually listening to. People are going to listen to what's relative to them now, rather than seeing a corporate scripted act of showing you exactly what it is. People want realism. People are being more realist than they've ever been, right? So in order to contribute to the realistic outlook of what they have, right, and what they're looking for, right, they're gonna find people that are relatively, that look like them, that act like them, that speak like them. Now everything's become so relative. So this is why, for anybody that's looking around and asking themselves, what happened to all the superstars that were just in one niche and we need that? It's like, again, yes, there are people there's the dark side of the people having platforms and voices because they can say whatever and you can garner an audience by doing that. But then there's a beauty of it by giving you the access to speak your mind, especially if you're doing it from a positive aspect of it too. And people can make a living off of it as well. So these were things that I was just thinking about, and I was like, this is actually so crazy that a lot of us are just not striving towards what we're talented in and what our mindset should look like, knowing that you could be a superstar in your own role. Nobody needs to be a Michael Jordan. And you don't need to be a Michael Jordan. You could just be a role player on the team and still be a superstar within that. And that's what matters as much as trying to strive for it. I want to ask the audience and whoever's listening a question. Are you a failure if you're making six figures in what you're doing, have the freedom of waking up and falling in love with what you're falling in love, or waking up to something that you're in love with, right? Have a beautiful family, contribute to a community that loves you. Are you a failure in those terms? Are you? Some people say they are, but are you, right? I think this is a question I've already asked in the last podcast, but I just want to dig deeper to it because sometimes we just fly into thinking that, hey, I want to get so far ahead that I don't even care who I am anymore. And then you lose authenticity. This is why you see a lot of people go push and push and push with no limits, and then they lose the authenticity of who they are, and then allow the money to dictate them. This is when the corporations start to step in and say, here, dangling a lot of money and saying this is what you need to do and this is what you need to say, and they lose authenticity of who they are, and they start to lose their audience a little bit because they've lost who they are, right? Now, there's an extreme side to that, of course, right? The extreme side of that is there are people that say they're anti-establishment and they just want to neglect everything, but also are causing more harm to the communities rather than being super helpful. I think there's a middle balance to everything, but doing too much of anything is always bad, right? I always say having to do too much of anything is always bad because you want to find a limitation. When is enough for you, right? So as much as we're going back to the original discussion, as much as we do talk about being a superstar, what does a superstar look like in a place amongst a smaller group of people? it doesn't exist anymore. We don't live in the 1900s or in the 1990s or early 2000s. It doesn't work that way anymore. And once you have that mindset shift of knowing that, hey, I just want to be a superstar in the niche that I'm growing in, especially identifying being in an underserved industry, then you can just be in a place where, okay, I'm comfortable where I am. I'm comfortable with building the community that I have, having the core audience, and then serving that core audience in community that are striving to support me along the way, right? And it's okay to grow, but you need to understand where your limits are and where do you find yourself in when you think just because, hey, I'm a smaller act in comparison to, and it goes back to comparing, right? In comparison to somebody that's a huge act, you don't know what they've done to get there, first and foremost. And secondly, you also don't want to compromise what you've already built. You know? I think the beauty of the process of what you're going through is building, because there's so much honor that comes with it, right? Once you finish accomplishing of building something, right, then you start to be so ecstatic with what you've done, because now there's so much honor of what you've done, and looking back at what you've done, how you've done it, right? Again, you have a story to tell. So today's episode, I was just trying to get into that and think about, why is it that superstardom was such a small group of people, but now it's been spread all over the place, where you're not a superstar and just a one entertainment place, a place of consuming content, but rather you're a superstar in so many subsets or subsets of entertainment, or just being a creative generally, by just being entertainment, being yourself. And the biggest lesson to take away from this is just being yourself. There's only one you. There's only the one you that's went through that experience on their own. There's only that one you that's had a bad time or a bad day that day and is putting out content and putting it all together and speaking their mind. There's only one you that had that time and those issues. I remember one day, it was an issue I had with my car, right? And somebody came to help me with the car. I think it was a battery issue, or I don't know what happened, I forgot, but the car just died on me, right? So the person came to me and I was like, I'm just having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. And the person that was helping me with my car, he looked at me directly and was like, wow, you're a lucky person. I was thinking, why? And they were looking at me and say, because, you know, you've been given a set of issues to you, right? It's been specifically for you, those issues. And I thought about it, I was like, and the guy just walked away randomly, and I'm like, did this guy just give me a line and just leave after he just helped me with my car? It was just so strange. And then I thought about it, and I was like, as I started to learn and been more grateful about the issues I've had, or maybe even the struggles I've had, I started to realize this is a story for me. There is a storyline behind this that everybody needs to learn about. And the timing of what I've went through, right, could be a timing of somebody else that hasn't gone through it, but simultaneously somebody that also has went through it at the same time that I have. But the difference is maybe I found a way to get out of it, and I could tell the story to that person, and they could find that same way of getting out of that issue, right? So being grateful with your struggles is amazing. And that just ties into what I'm saying. Being a superstar in your role of what you're doing, whether you're a motivational talker, a motivational speaker, or whomever, right? Whatever issues that you went through and you're helping somebody with, that was your story. And embrace that story, especially if you're trying to build something around it, right? I think we're super thankful for God has given us so much, a set of struggles, but simultaneously gave us solutions to find that, and then packaging it together to distribute to other people to help them along the way. But the problem is, a lot of us get stuck with the struggles, and then get stuck with rethinking about those struggles, and then you lose the idea of knowing that you could just have been super popular off of telling people what those struggles are. Obviously, if it's explicit or whatever, keep it to yourself. But I'm talking about the struggles that are universally known, but it's only authentic and different because it's coming from you. Do you understand? So I think a lot of us need to embrace that. Be a superstar for where you are. Be a superstar within your story. And then be a superstar of being authentic and being real with not only with yourself, but with other people when they hear your story. You understand? So, inshallah, hopefully you guys caught into this episode, and it's okay to never be popular again, but it's also okay to be who you are and capitalizing on anything that comes with who you are and what God has given you, whether it's the struggles, the positives, the ups, the downs, the happiness, and the sadness. All right, guys, I'll see you guys, inshallah, next episode. Assalamu alaikum.